right. 6 Jewish words. Bad news, but it's not cancer. I am not Jewish, but I am married to a Jew. A mercurial, extroverted, over-caffeinated Jew named Larry Smith. When Piper met Larry, she, a waspy, lesbian infomercial producer. He, a Jewish, womanizing, nonprofit journalist. Who says that this is not going to work out? I think I knew that Larry was the man for me when he messengered a fresh Philadelphia pretzel across San Francisco to my office. It had been baked that morning in Philly. And you know, the Jews know that carbs are the way to a woman's heart. I appreciated that. And I think Larry knew that I was the girl for him when I demanded a breakfast of Kansas City ribs and beer during a cross-country road trip. So we have that. We have some weird food obsessions between us. And we also discovered that we're both fanatically devoted to our grandfathers. His, a Russian Jewish emigre who came to this country and became a small-town pharmacist in New Jersey and the unofficial mayor of the Atlantic City Boardwalk. And Pop-Up was a total pushover. Sweet man. And my grandfather, also a Russian Jew, though he lapsed in the 30s. And he was a Southerner, and a Navy man, and a hard ass, and a bossy pants. So we were sort of a match made in heaven. We have had more in common than you would think. And so years passed, 7 years passed, and we decided to get engaged, and people were really, really happy. You know, my ex-hippie parents had been somewhat startled when I introduced them to Larry. He was the wrong gender as far as they understood, but you know, they were delighted. They said, hallelujah, they're getting married, that's great. And Larry's parents, who are very different than mine, were also thrilled. So, you know, good news all around, right? There was this one sort of dark shadow, and that was that I was under indictment and on my way to prison. So, many years before, pre-infomercial, I had been entangled with a international drug trafficking lesbian and had made some really bad career choices. The infomercials were a big step up, believe me. So, the consequences of our actions always come back to us in one way or another, and in my case, I was looking at a stretch in prison. And Larry, that mensch, he stood by me all the way. And that was certainly one of the reasons that my family was so thrilled that he wanted to marry me. He was a stand-up guy. But there was this one little problem, which was that his parents didn't know about this. So, if you don't know Carol and Lou Smith, a few key details. My sister-in-law is right here. They are high school sweethearts. They still live in the bucolic South Jersey County where they were born and raised. There were and are a lot of bar association dinners and football games. Carol's Brandeis group has been meeting for 40 consecutive years. You know, at the Seder and Passover, Carol wants to talk about the meaning of life and Lou wants to eat. You know, and unlike my house, the parents were not listening to a lot of Bobby Dylan and James Brown and David Bowie. There was a lot of Neil Diamond and Barbra Streisand, and interestingly, Meatloaf. You may not know this, Jewish Meatloaf. Look, I was born in Berkeley in 1969. Larry and I were coming from very different places. So, about 6 months before we knew that I was going to be sent to prison for a year, Larry and I agreed it was time to tell his parents. This was one of the most terrifying things I'd ever faced in my life, right up there with actually going to prison. So Larry called up his folks and he said, Piper and I have something that we need to discuss with you in person. Dun, dun, dun. And shortly thereafter, we got in the car and we made the journey to Jersey, with me squirming in the passenger seat in agony, and Larry just gripping the wheel and saying, just follow my lead, I know these people better than you do. And we got there, and we sat down at the kitchen table across from Carol and Lou, and they looked a lot more than nervous and just a shade below terrified. I think they knew that whatever bombshell was coming was about their shiksa daughter-in-law to be, and not about their son, mercifully, on some level. And Larry said 6 very Jewish words. Bad news, but it's not cancer. And they said, oh, thank God. And then the whole messy, sort of awful story came pouring out, I think fairly incoherently from both of us. And it was like when you get a splinter, a really bad, painful splinter out. It was like that kind of relief, right? And I looked up, and my future mother-in-law was clasping my hands, and she was saying, you were so young. And Lou was asking lawyer questions, and what could he do to help, and sort of gingerly, like, was I a drug addict? And what they were not saying was to never darken their doorstep again, and to leave their son alone, or, you know, pulling him aside and saying, why couldn't you just find a nice Jewish girl? All of the terrible things that I had feared and imagined. The irony of, you know, my in-laws is that when there's something minor is awry, it's a little bit like the Titanic is going down. But in case of a real disaster, these are the people that you want in your lifeboat. Right? The universe, you know, has sent, you know, the Smith family, they're O for Jews in the daughter and son-in-law department. You know, what the universe sent to them for their 3 beloved children are 1 diabetic Catholic, 1 introverted Mormon, and me, the WASP ex-con. And so that lifeboat, that Smith family lifeboat, is quite diverse. And grateful we are for that. And I will tell you something. When Passover rolled around in prison, I thought about the Smith family Seder with longing, and especially about Carol's brisket. And I will tell you, there were 2 Jews locked up with me, Levy and Burstein. And the second that Levy found out that I was engaged to a Jewish guy, she was on me week after week to come to rabbinical visits with her. And I'll tell you the truth, I managed to avoid the rabbinical visits, but I was flattered to be asked. And I realized that locked up or free, I am an honorary member of the tribe, and for that, I am very, very grateful.